Is using the protests to try to turn the tables on its neighbors as Gulf states send in troops to try to help stabilize the situation in Bahrain, hoping military action could help demonize the West. Jerry Seib is executive Washington editor of the Wall Street Journal and joins us now. All right, so Jerry, Bahrain, a tiny island nation that sits off the coast of Saudi Arabia. The Saudis were trying to let the Bahraini government handle things, but finally the Saudis had to send in troops, or felt they had to send in troops. Where does Iran come in?
Well, Iran comes in because Iran is a big Shiite country, the biggest Shiite country, and Bahrain is a Shiite majority island nation that is run by a Sunni minority monarchy. And so the Saudis have always worried about Shiite unrest in Bahrain because they also have a significant Shiite population. The danger here is that Bahrain becomes the site of a kind of proxy war between the Saudis defending a Sunni monarchy and the Iranians helping out their Shiite brethren, who are the majority in Bahrain, try to overthrow that same monarchy. That's one of the reasons the U.S. was not eager to have the Saudis send in troops, precisely because they don't want this to become the site of essentially a proxy war between Iran and the Gulf states.
I think we tend in this country to think of the Arab world as sort of this, monolithic bloc. But the Iranians, who are, after all, Persian in origin, have their own agenda and very often are in conflict with their neighbors. The Saudis don't like a strong Iran, especially a strong Iran with a nuclear weapon. Could this, do you think, come to some kind of a war between Saudi Arabia and Iran?
Well, that's the long-term fear, is that may be what happens here. Certainly the Saudis are very worried about Iran, even more so than we in the U.S. are. They live across the Gulf from Iran. They worry a lot about an Iranian nuclear weapon. They think that the unrest in Iraq has made the Iranians sort of freer to make trouble because they used to worry about Iraq on their other border. And so now there is a lot of fear in the Gulf about an Iran that is expanding its regional influence. They look at Bahrain and they really worry about that, and they think this could be the first step toward that happening. So one of the issues here is to keep Bahrain under control, which makes Bahrain, a tiny little nation, as we said, much more important than it may seem on the surface, and it's precisely because of the Iranian factor here.
And Iran is sort of the specter looming over what decisions have to be made about Libya and the no-fly zone. Some say that Iran is part of the reason that President Obama has not pushed harder or not decided to go in for a no-fly zone.
I think that's right. One of the concerns about Libya is that if you do have a Western intervention, which would be an American-led intervention in the end, that you basically play into the narrative that the Iranians are pushing for the whole region, which is that the U.S. is just lying in wait, wanting to take advantage of trouble to move in and establish friendly governments and take control of oil fields in Libya and Iraq and conceivably in Iran itself. That's one of the reasons the Iranians give to crush their own internal dissenters. So there is a reason to think about Iran when you think about Libya. But on the other side, people who want there to be Western intervention in Libya make the reverse argument. They say if Muammar Gaddafi survives in Libya, the lesson to the Iranians will be the way you stay out of trouble here is you crush internal dissension. The Iranians want to do that already. This will give them even more reason to do that. So there are arguments about Iran on both sides of the debate over whether the West should intervene in Libya.
And the Iranians crushed a lot of internal debate, especially after that most recent disputed election of theirs.
They did, but they haven't really extinguished it, and it keeps popping up. And so the more that it pops up and the more they see that the way to survive in the Middle East these days is to really put down the opposition as opposed to trying to make deals with the opposition, then they're going to be even more inclined to do that. And you've seen some moves by the Iranians in the last couple of weeks to try to tighten up control and to reduce the voices of dissenters. So you may see more of that in Iran as well, particularly if Gaddafi survives in Libya.
Jerry Seib is the executive editor in Washington of the Wall Street Journal. Jerry, thank you.
John, thanks.